Apparently, we are live. Welcome back to another installment of ENTP Life Live Editions. I'm sorry my camera looks so crappy. I'm just using my onboard webcam here. As you can see, I'm in my newer office for 8book. We relocated from our shared work environment to a medical park facility. And this is the new setting for the time being while I work out of Florida. So just to let you guys know what we're going to be covering today, like all my other lives here on this channel, I put out a weekly video. And the weekly video is like the topic of the week. And this week's video is covering one of my Airbnb flips, so to speak. And I try to give a little insight into what I did with that particular project or what that video is, a little more details. And then I allow for question and answer on the topic. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And sorry for all the hiccups or whatever, it's just trying to get settled and get the vibe going. So I'm broadcasting simultaneously on YouTube, Facebook, and here on Instagram. Thomas, what's up, man? How are you? Lourdes, hello. You guys on YouTube, do you hear me clearly? Katya, what's up, guys? So I'm going to be addressing questions both here on YouTube and Instagram related to the topic at hand. Israel, how are you? So yeah, and I hope I'm loud and clear here. And those of you who are following on YouTube, can you hear me? Okay. Just because this is a different, yeah, I see my audio is picking up, so I think we're good here. Any of you guys, those of you who are watching, just do me a favor. If you're watching this, like it, interact with the video. Apparently, all the algorithms appreciate that and push the live notifications out to more and more people, the more engaged the audience is. So I certainly encourage it all. DJ, what's going on? All is well here. So it's been about 5 minutes of my usual rhetoric. Just to let you guys know, here on ENTP Life, what I've really been trying to do, and I'm starting to get a good sense of what my channel is about, aside from a sneak peek into the operations in mind of I really try to focus on teaching people how to monetize things in their life, whether it's through real estate investing or healthcare. That's the kind of my areas of expertise. I try to show people business hacks, what they could do to extract value out of whatever it is that they're doing, so that eventually they can offset their income, like that's generated from working a 9 to 5, to producing passive income or investment type income that will allow them to separate themselves from their job and actually start living the life that they want, right? Most people will tell you that they are dissatisfied with their life, and if they could change one thing, it'd be their career or their location, but they can't because they're committed to their expenses, etc. And I always felt the same way. But my solution had been, well, if I could just solve the money piece, then I could focus on living, right, the way that I want to. Because typically when you try to pursue those passion projects, people tell you, well, how are you going to make money as an artist or as a dancer or as a musician or whatever it is. So I try to concentrate on, silencing that audience by silencing the money conversation, showing you that it's quite simple to produce meaningful income so that you could live anywhere in the world and be just fine with that. So that's typically what we cover here on the channel in a long nutshell. So if that's content that you're interested in hearing more of, if you're not already following me on Instagram or on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe, follow the channel. And that's the kind of stuff that we'll talk about. So this week's video, I put out, a finale to a series that I was kind of covering. And that's kind of how my channel goes. It's a bunch of simultaneous series of projects that I'm doing, right? So this project was actually started out with me looking for my first deal in Florida, right? Those of you who are followers of the channel know that I moved from New York to Florida about 2 years ago. And I've been flipping real estate since 2006, or investing in real estate since 2006, flipping since 2009. And I wanted to, continue my activity in Florida. So I was shopping around, found a property. The original idea for this property wasn't Airbnb. It was, in fact, to do a tear down and build out 3 townhouses, because that was kind of what it was zoned for, but not really. So the idea was to build out 3 townhouses, and those townhouses will sell for about 1.1 to 1.5 as new constructions with pools kind of decked out. And I figured that if I built 3 townhouses, I would be able to liquidate 2 of them to cover the cost and kind of inherit the third one for free or almost free. But that goal got shut down, and because I was short 4 feet on the width of my lot. So even though that the property had 3 units on it and it was zoned for that at some point in time, the new zoning code requires that I need to have at least 33 feet per townhouse unit on the property. And since I only had 96 feet, they would only approve me for 2 units. And that was a downer. And it didn't make financial sense for me to do that. And at the same time, we're knee deep in the COVID shutdown and had no idea how long the project would take if I did do a complete teardown. So I went with, what made the next best sense, which was, let me just renovate what's here in place, figure out what I'm going to do with this project in 10, 15 years down the line, get some use out of it. Let's reface the property. And since it's located near the beach, near the water, turn this into a vacation rental. One where it's actually an owner-occupied vacation rental. So when I'm here in Florida, that's where I live. And when I'm not here, it's listed on Airbnb, and I have 2 additional units to do so. So the project, the actual purchase price was $600,000, which was actually equivalent to the land value. And then I'm not going to even talk about how much I spent renovating it, because I completely blew out my budget. And that's the problem when you start to cross personal living with investment properties. It's always a terrible idea, because you approach things in a way that you want to convenience yourself, that you may not necessarily do if you're just doing a rental property. So there were some certain things that I overspent on, and it was a project that just dragged and dragged and dragged. And the more I did, right? So every now and then I kind of fall into a black hole like that, where I take on a project that doesn't make any sense. I had no investors on this project. This was kind of a personal project, and usually that's what happens there, right? Because I don't have a mandate, I don't have a code to stick by, and I could get a little reckless. Way over budget, Randy. Way over budget. I'm not doing that. Way over budget. Like 200% over. Yeah, bad. But yeah. So either way, that's kind of what happened there. Usually on a project like this, I would estimate about $30 a square foot to spruce up the property. And that was the initial viewpoint. I'd spent about $110,000 on this. And I did not spend $110,000. I spent about $300,000 on it. And you're thinking, how the hell did that possibly happen? Well, had to redo the entire electrical system, had to redo the entire plumbing system, had to redo the landscaping, the pavers, things that I didn't account for originally. I ended up having to redo because they're pretty strict about permitting in Fort Lauderdale. So this sort of project, I probably could have gotten done maybe for about $130,000 if I was just working with my New York team in one of my environments that I'm used to. But I wasn't working exclusively with my New York team. I even brought them down here to help push the project along. So I had 2 teams working simultaneously to get it done. And of course, the carrying time is factored into that overall renovations budget. What happened there is that in order to renovate the kitchens and bathrooms to the extent that I was renovating, we had to update everything to modern code because it wouldn't be accepted by the contractors. And even if you do an in-kind renovation, you're required to actually pull permits on just refacing your kitchen, which is different than most other counties. But Fort Lauderdale has pretty strict building code requirements, mainly because the properties are exposed to, hurricane conditions quite frequently. And because of that, every time that the city gets wrecked by a hurricane, the code gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. So that's kind of how I ended up running over budget. If I was just approaching this as an Airbnb property, I could have really gone super cheap on how I renovated this property and maybe even got the work that I need to get done down to about $75,000. And in hindsight, I kind of wish I did that, but that's what ended up happening. So that's what happened there as far as that project is concerned. Now, the things that I learned about Fort Lauderdale, aside from the building code being difficult, is that contractors down here are straight up on Caribbean time. And it probably has everything to do with the temperature. People down here are freaking slow about everything that they do. And it's rather frustrating. And, like I said, I ended up bringing my New York crew down to push work along. And they were amazed by the pace that local contractors worked at. And if it wasn't for that, I guarantee you, if it wasn't for my crew, I actually still am working on the property. I'm just tightening up the landscaping. That's kind of the last piece. Building a new shed, and that's kind of the end of it. Yeah, it's dope, but it doesn't, just a comment from Instagram. It came out pretty good, but for the stress and the fact that I spent what it's worth, I don't feel like it, I'm disappointed in myself, to be quite honest. I like how it looks, whatever. But from an investment standpoint, I didn't do well with this project. I tied up a lot of cash, and it is what it is. I could have turned around and bought a renovated property, similar condition, zero headache, traditionally financed, and this would have been a 1-month ordeal instead of a freaking 10-month ordeal or 12-month ordeal, and still not being quite satisfied with the end result or the financial gain. So when I look at it from that perspective, I say it's expensive. If I were to take the same cash requirement, I could deploy that capital in just a rent-to-rent strategy and be making way more in cash flow on that money. So overall, in my opinion, this is a failure. Obviously, I kind of talk about it in a positive way, but in all honesty, it's a failure. I would advise that anybody who's looking to do the same doesn't do what I did in this particular project. But yeah, I did have a couple of questions that came through that I would like to address. And if anybody has any questions at this point, it's now time for us to talk about like my approach, my logic, my ideas to investing in real estate, right? Those of you who don't know, I've already put out a course on how to invest in 1 to 4 family real estate. It's called Killing the American Dream. On Instagram, you'll see the link in my link tree. On YouTube, you'll see it in the description box below. Now, the strategies that I use in that program kind of got thrown out the window on this one because, like I said, the original intent for the project was a tear down and new build, right, which had its budget. Then that changed because of circumstances. and then I went over budget. So none of those things are things that I would advise anybody to do, and I would tell them to stick religiously to the teachings. Previously, I did a project with a group through the Kill the American Dream program, and we more or less stuck to that format, generated a profit that was in line with how the S&P performed over that same period, which was pretty monstrous. But the returns were good, and everybody cashed out in a positive way. So if you are interested in investing, flipping houses, 1 to 4 families, you can check out that course. Super cheap, $97 a month. You probably get through it in about 3 to 4 months. And that really goes deeper into what my overall strategy is for assessing a property, building an organization, raising money, securing debt, all the tools that you need to do something like this. However, from an Airbnb perspective, you don't need to own the real estate to do Airbnb, okay? It's not necessary. You really don't need to own. I actually have some rent-to-rent properties. I'm actually working on another rent-to-rent deal with Randy Rosales, who's featured here. We're looking at a project in Colombia that's going to be a rent-to-rent, right? That we're renting the facility, refitting it to what we are looking to achieve. Obviously, there's going to be some construction. There's going to be furnishing involved, but it's far cheaper to do that than to outright purchase a property and still have to make the same renovation. So a lot of people can get into Airbnb utilizing a rent-to-rent strategy, and it's kind of what I advocate for. If you're able to secure a long-term lease, negotiate the rights to Airbnb the property or vacation rental the property with the owners, and that's not going to be an issue, and it's legal in that city, then you absolutely can do it, and you can do it on the cheap. So one of the questions that I got asked on Instagram, I had put out like a little questionnaire for like how to how much. The question specifically was, how much does it cost to get one of these going, right? And what's the least amount of money that you need to get started? And in my opinion, the least amount of money can actually be $0, right? And it's like, well, how is that possible? Well, it's possible in a distressed situation. For instance, let's just say you had somebody that had an apartment in New York City, furnished, decent part of town, studio apartment, and they are about to relocate because they got a job offering in, I don't know, Tennessee somewhere, right? So they might be looking at working on a deal so that they don't lose their deposit because it's short notice, change, etc. And they don't want to deal with hauling their furniture or putting their furniture in storage, that they're just looking for somebody to take over their apartment. So it's already furnished, security deposit, first month's rent, broker's fee already paid. They just need somebody to pick up the rent so that they don't lose their deposit. And at the end of that term, that deposit is returned to them, and they don't lose their money. And whatever happens to the furniture, the move out process isn't on them; it's now on you. So you can technically take over a fully furnished apartment when you find a scenario like that. Now, is that going to be likely? No. Is it something that you totally can find in a city of 8 million? Yes. Right. So I think I think it might be like 11 million in New York. Whatever the number is, multi-million population, there's going to be those scenarios that pop up. So that's like the minimum that you need is $0. You photograph the space, put it on Airbnb, you're in business. You're actually on Airbnb, you start getting bookings like within the first day of listing a New York City property. Downside is in New York City, hold on. In New York City, sorry about that. In New York City, the what was I saying? I got distracted by that call. In New York City, you can't technically sublet Class A rentals. You could share a room or do it in your private home, but in apartment buildings, it's kind of prohibited, and it's to kind of prevent apartment building owners from just converting their whole building into vacation rentals. But so you technically can't do it, but tons of people do, including myself. And I'm snitching on myself, so that's what it is. Whatever. All right. So anyway, when you do something like that, you could get in for $0. The next step, which I did kind of an episode on this right here on the channel, was kind of setting up an apartment. So in most cases, you're going to pay at least first month's security and first month's rent. 1 month security, first month's rent when you're looking to get an Airbnb. Or when you're looking to rent any space, that's going to be like the typical standards. And then sometimes a third payment for a broker's fee. So whether it's a house that's for rent or it's an apartment that's for rent, you would have to negotiate those terms, right? And that will be your initial cost. Then there's going to be a spend on furnishing, right? And it's up to you to be as creative as possible to get your furniture. You could do yard sales. You could just order everything brand new, decorate the space. Third cost is going to be potentially your photography cost and getting the photos ready. And that's only going to be about $100 to $150, depending on the market that you're in, to get high quality photos. If you look at the photos that I have on my listings, I always hire a professional photographer. I can do it myself, but I just think it's better use of my time to hire the photographer to do it. And all they do is shoot interiors. So their process is quick. Their processing time and turnover time is also quick. So if you were kind of looking at my first example where I did a studio apartment in the city, my out-of-pocket costs were roughly about $8,000, $7,000 to $8,000. So I spent $2,300 for my security deposit, $2,300 for first month's rent. Broker's fee was waived, right? So that's $4,600. And then I feel like I spent roughly about $2,000 on furnishing. That's the bed frame, coffee table, small couch, TV, table, pots, pans, cups, towels, toiletries, that sort of thing. Takes you about $2,000, maybe $3,000 for a studio to 1 bedroom apartment. If you do 2 bedrooms, kind of maybe add another $700 per room, right? Because you're going to need a bed. You're going to need bed frame, bed, dresser, maybe another TV. You could bump, depending on what you're going to offer in that room, you're going to adjust that price accordingly. So if you look at that figure, you might be in for about $7,500 to $10,000 to get into a house or an apartment, right? 2 to 3 bedrooms, even a studio, right? You could call it about 10 grand in most markets. If you start going for a more expensive house where the monthly rent is $6,000 or $8,000 a month, and you obviously going to have to adjust accordingly. And what you could probably command on the rent side is also going to be higher, right? So that's the sort of logic that you need to apply. If you're looking to own and do Airbnb, you automatically are putting yourself to at least 3 to 5% down, plus your closing costs. So that's going to be 10% of the real estate costs at minimum, right? Out of pocket, and then your furnishing cost. And you're probably going to make the same profit margin. The only benefit to owning your Airbnbs is the long-term amortization of the debt, right? That as you pay your monthly bill, right, rather than paying monthly rent, you're paying your monthly mortgage and taxes, etc. You are building equity in this property, right? So that's a trade-off there. Now, DJ here, who was on Instagram, I don't know if he's still around. He bought his first home out west, and he has it on Airbnb. And his logic was, I'm going to at least house hack on Airbnb. I think my Airbnb rentals will cover my obligations, and I can live here rent-free. So now you're able to generate enough income from Airbnb, servicing clients, having living alongside them. But now you're living mortgage-free, rent-free, paying off this asset, while saving up money to do the next one, right? So that was his logic going in, and it makes sense. If you don't own any other real estate, take advantage of that. That's your first ownership scenario. But if you want to get into this Airbnb thing for the least amount of money, rent to rent is going to be your best option. So that's the long answer to that question that came in through Instagram. When we do our project, hopefully we don't go over budget. I don't know. It depends. You you tend to you like nice things, Randy. So uh, if you get fixated on certain items that really aren't going to make any difference to what we're going to be able to charge, then we may end up going over budget. But I don't think we necessarily need to. I think the unique thing about that project is the size of the property, and that's where the value is. So if we spruce it up, it's nice, it's comfortable, we'll be all right, and I think we'll stay within a reasonable budget. And another thing is that the labor is super cheap. It wasn't the materials that freaking killed me; it was all the labor cost that killed me here in Florida. So that is the downside to working in the United States. The cost of construction is absurd because of how much laborers get paid. Okay, so let's go to Instagram. Actually, I'm YouTube, sorry. So Farah, we bought a duplex and we're currently renovating it. Congratulations. I remember talking to you about looking at deals. Cool. So I'm glad that you followed through. Awesome. The home is near the lake and in a good location. Should I rent it out or do Airbnb? Pros and cons for rentals and Airbnb, please. Thank you, Carl. Okay, Farah. If I remember correctly, you were looking at properties in like the upstate New York area. Please clarify if that's the case. In order to make the decision between, hold on a second. Get this guy. Give me 1 second here. I have a guest asking a question. Okay. Sorry about that. Let me tune it back in here. Craziness. Okay. So the pros and cons. Now, first of all, is it going to be worth it for you is all dependent on your, what's it called? How much money you're going to make as an Airbnb rental. And there's a few tools. You can use AirDNA, HomeAway, and Airbnb will give you like a roundabout number. If you just put in your address and say, hey, how much is this property going to make based on the bedroom, bathroom, and location? They'll give you like the average earnings for other hosts in that area. With upstate New York, if that's the place that you're at, you might have kind of like seasons of travel, right? Like you might have the winter crowd that's trying to get away, do the cabin sort of thing, go skiing, etc. And then the summer crowd for people who want to go and enjoy the lake and take their kids somewhere for the summer. And you might get long-term rentals or be booked up in those times. The concern with those areas in New York are the low months when people aren't traveling, right? I'm seeing this with my Airbnb in Florida. I'm booked up solid in New York because of the New York City, because of the density of the city and how people are going for vacation, business, visiting family, medical procedures. So I'm always booked up, even in the low seasons, like January, February tends to be low, September, October tends to be low throughout the United States. So you're going to suffer from those low seasons when you're kind of looking at New York or upstate New York. But if the numbers make sense, fine. The hardest part about Airbnb is the service to the clients, managing the turnovers, making sure your cleaners are there, that they're turning over things properly. That's kind of what I'm dealing with now is a bad turnover. So, if you have that under control, then it's kind of a low stress thing and you'll make a little more money than your traditional rental. So one of the pros to Airbnb is that if typically you're going to earn more renting it out by day as a vacation rental than a long-term tenant. The con to that is that you're at the mercy of the seasons and there's more service involved. Typically, your long-term tenant, aside from there being a major issue, you don't hear from them. They pay their rent on time. Life is good. So you can even split the difference and compare for yourself since you have a duplex. One unit Airbnb, the other unit long-term. See which one, makes more sense for you and stick with that, at any given point, which one's more comfortable for you. So that's what I would say are the pros and cons there. Okay, Sean, Savvy Business Chick on Instagram. I've been trying to get my husband to do rental property in St. Petersburg. Maybe next year he'll listen to me. Yeah, you guys were over there. I remember we had gone to like that Tampa region on a summer vacation. Maybe you might need to do the business model for him, right? Show him the potential there, right? You guys travel there from time to time, but let's just say you bought a house down in St. Pete's, or you just rented a house long term, right? That could be kind of your way of hedging the risk, Sean. You could say, all right, let's say we rented this house. This is how much we'd earn on Airbnb. And if we blocked out this month for our family, for summer vacation or whatever, this is what it'll be. We'll actually get this vacation rental for free or even cash flow and make money on this just by managing this way. Put together the full business plan and package it in a way that he can't really object, right? That's what I would advise there. Let me just switch back off. Okay. Let's see what other questions have popped up. DJ said, do you only Airbnb on your rental property? If not, why? Okay, so Airbnb, no. The majority, 99% of what I own are long-term rentals. They're not Airbnbs. I would rather do a bunch of rent-to-rents for Airbnb than own a bunch of Airbnb properties. That's just kind of the way I think, because the return on an investment is going to be much, much higher on my rent-to-rent strategy, right? So if I cash flow $1,000 a month on my New York City apartments and I paid $10,000 to start that operation, on that $10,000, I'm doing 120% ROI annually. I mean, you're not seeing those numbers on real estate that you own. That's just not going to happen. So, I the real estate that I own as long-term rentals tend to be homes, and they kind of fit, that strategy. But when I'm looking at Airbnbs, I mostly look at them from a rent-to-rent perspective. Lower cost of entry, better cash flow. It's kind of a cash flow centered sort of business. I would do like a boutique hotel, maybe like 8-unit apartment building converted completely into Airbnbs, own that, potentially extract more value through restaurant or something along those lines. But I haven't done that yet. So that's just like kind of thinking out loud. Okay, another question from India Aware. Interested in how you search the right cleaner, property manager worldwide, example, Italy. How do you know you are maintaining the same standards worldwide? How do you find support? Just like anything that you do, you always try to screen talent, and the better talent shows, right? So, for instance, right now I'm dealing with a turnover issue, right? They left towels in the hamper, you forgot to leave the key in the right location, and now I'm kind of crediting money and making adjustments and trying to satisfy this client. That happens a lot with this cleaner, right? So I want to change her. Now, the thing is, when you get those sort of complaints from a client, a vendor, I'm not a vendor, from a client, a guest, when you get those sort of complaints, you can see whether or not it's them or it's a one-off scenario, something, whatever. But if you start to see that as consistent type complaints, then you know that it's a problem with that person, and it's your responsibility to recruit somebody. So if you're doing something internationally, right? I'm not just, I didn't go into Italy blindly. Well, actually, I kind of did, but I wouldn't go into Italy blindly to start an Airbnb business 100% remote. I physically went to Italy, physically looked at my property, started to make relationships. And then through those contacts, real estate agent, people who, like right now, Cecilia is trying to help me. She's someone that I've gotten to know through the process. The contractors, whoever I can, I let them know what I'm looking for, who I'm looking for. I've been approached by people to manage my properties, right, through social media. And I just screen them for, the characteristics that I'm looking for, that they're detailed oriented, that they have maybe some experience doing this in the past, and try to develop protocols and tools for them to use so that you systematize the effort, right? So that way they're kind of going off of standard photos, a checklist of what to expect, a reporting procedure, and they're able to communicate with you through WhatsApp, photos, videos. And then you also have the feedback from the guests that actually stay in your facility. So, yeah. So if you're fortunate enough to create your systems and those systems work, once you get the complaints from the guest, if you see that's a reoccurring issue, then you can actually solve for that reoccurring issue, right? Let's just say the reoccurring issue is toilet keeps getting clogged. Then you might have a long-term plumbing issue that you need to correct, or you might need a new toilet or whatever. And then you adjust for that. If you have a crappy cleaner or a cleaner who's unresponsive, then you got to hire somebody else, give them a try. They're either going to be better or worse or the same. And you keep changing out those people, hiring people until you find the right fit. And then, so it's going to really come down to your systems and to just working with the people that meet your standards, right? Your standards might be substandard to other people. So even though you thought you were doing a good job, your guests might think you're doing a terrible job, right? So, you kind of have to set whatever standard you have for yourself, and then your guests will help you adjust on that. For me, I'm a kind of personally, like, if you guys know any ENTPs are not really known for being orderly and organized, and they kind of are low stress people. Not low stress people, because that could be kind of obnoxious, but they kind of are more nonchalant, I would say. So, like, I've been an Airbnb guest host, or I've been an Airbnb guest where there's things wrong with the apartment, and I don't really complain and whatever, man. Or I complain, I might just check out and not ask for a refund, I just move on. So I'm not somebody who gets into this like complainer mode. But there's other people who are that way. There's certain things that they won't, like if I came in and there was dirty laundry in the hamper, and I was like, okay, somebody forgot to process this and whatever. It's not like there's like a dirty pair of panties under my pillow or something like that. Like that would kind of bother me. But dirty laundry in a hamper wouldn't bother me. If I came in and there was like a bottle of empty water in the trash can, not an empty trash can, it'd be like, okay, somebody didn't turn that over, but whatever. I wouldn't complain, but there's other people that will. So if you are like me and you're like, you let certain things slide because they wouldn't bother you, you might get complaints for those things because it bothers somebody else. So standards are I would try to meet the standards of the guest or exceed the standards of the guest and use their feedback to adjust, right? And then it's always better maybe to hire people that even have a higher standard than you, that won't tolerate certain things. Like there's certain, like my cleaner in Florida, sometimes she stresses me out trying to get things perfect. And I'm like, this doesn't matter. And she's like, no, of course it does. And then, the overall experience ends up being a better experience than I would provide if I was doing it myself. So sometimes it's better to have really awesome people. Actually, it's always better to have people who are better and more caring than you, doing, whatever it is that you need them to do. Oh, thank you. How do I pin this thing? I don't know how to. Okay. Sean shared my Killing the American Dream link, so I just pinned it if you guys are interested in that on Instagram. Okay, Thomas asked, what attracts you to real estate investing in Colombia? I wouldn't necessarily invest in real estate in Colombia. Like, I wouldn't say that is my, I wouldn't consider it like a top market. I'd rather invest in real estate in the US, mainly because I'm earning in dollars. The property values are dollarized and a little more stable. And the rent to property values are higher in the US than they are in Colombia. But the projects that I'm doing kind of concentrate on tourism. So you're kind of dealing with customers that are already dollarized. So you can make way more money from that standpoint, kind of catering to tourists. So any investments that I do will be for the tourism industry, just because you're able to charge the foreigner a fee that they're comfortable with, but actually is highly, highly, highly profitable in general and highly, highly profitable for Colombia. I like Medellin, Colombia. It's a great city to travel to. It's a weekend city, but it's a great city to travel to. And I would say Colombia's peak foreign tourism market is probably Cartagena. And the real estate is quite expensive in Cartagena to own. But they have Old Town, these Spanish colonials that are really cool, that if I were going to buy real estate in Colombia for investment purposes, it would be one of those properties in Cartagena. I'm thinking about doing something like that, because not only the rental rates are higher in Cartagena, if you have 8-bedroom, 10-bedroom house with a courtyard pool, maybe the total investment cost is $1 million, but you might be able to yield $15,000 a month on that. So, it gives you kind of a historic property that holds value. It would be a cool project. But then again, for $1 million spend, I could turn around and put up way more properties and do more than 15,000. So it's that's kind of the trouble area with investing in South America. The other question coming from India, is how do you enter markets like California? Everywhere we search, legal laws against no Airbnbs. How do you work with this? You post them illegally until you get caught. That's kind of what you're working with. Or you go into markets that are Airbnb friendly. You make your money until they're not Airbnb friendly. So you have to operate within the confines of the law in markets that you can, right? Markets that you understand. The gravy train was there for California. It's just the same way in New York City. I wish I started in New York City way early. I would have made much more money there. I started in New York City after they passed the laws. I've been evicted from 2 apartments so far for vacation rentals. It's part of the risk and part of the issue. So, if you want to deal with that headache, you deal with it. If you don't, then you go to a different market. I've been looking at the Philly market. I've been looking at Nashville, Tennessee, down here in Florida. Places where people want to be, where it makes more sense to maybe not stay in a hotel. Downtown Atlanta. So you just got to look around and see where it makes sense. 33 Hip Hop. Hi, Carl. Bought a duplex near Wequahick, New Jersey. Cool, man. I had a property over there, sold it. Was close to signing on a traditional tenant to a year lease, but signed a traveling nurse tenant for 90 days at $800 more. We're attempting to market for the next 90 days after this and hopefully score another one. Spent close to $4,000 furnishing the 2-bedroom. P.S. At this rate, the traveling nurse pays my entire mortgage. Dope. These are the stories I like. I remember talking to you about Weequahic, and that I did a project over there. Values are good in Weequahic. The neighborhood's more stable. There's a hospital right there. So what you might want to do is utilize that nurse to kind of pass the word on to her agency and any other travel nurses that might be circling behind her if you want to make that your niche. Contact the agency that she works with. They might be able to put you on their recommended list. You might be able to promote it on Airbnb as a long-term rental to travel nurses or something along those lines. But that's dope, man. That's an excellent success story. I'm glad you shared it. Running Riot XO. Can you send me protocols you use for the managers? Yeah, sure. I have something. I'm gonna have to start charging you. Yeah, you they think you're lazy. It's just introversion and kind of being a little more relaxed. But yeah, just email me at email operations. I'm gonna put that here in the flag here at entplife.com, and just kind of say, hey, Carl told me to write for some of the Airbnb protocols, and then I'll approve for some of that to be shared with you. And anybody else, who wants to get in contact with me, you can either email me at operations@entplife.com for things like that. Or if you want to book a meeting or a session with me, you have an option to do so through my Calendly link. It's one-to-one coaching and mentoring. Or the general email inbox is info@entplife. You can shoot whatever inquiries you have there. DJ said, also, how do you find these managers? Craigslist. You could use Craigslist. You could use word of mouth referrals. You can first start by looking for cleaning people, right? You could contact cleaning agencies and say, hey, I'm looking for this service. And this is how we're going to do it. It's going to be kind of random turnovers, ask them what they charge. I've even thought about setting up a cleaning service for this. But, just maybe because you don't recruit people, but you could try Craigslist. You could post Craigslist gigs to see if you can find cleaning people on there. You could try to find cleaning agencies. And I think if you want to offset the risk, contact like a cleaning agency and tell them, hey, I'm looking for a cleaner to do hotel style room turnovers. Or you could find a cleaning lady who works at a hotel who picks up extra cleanings on their shifts. Word of mouth, you might be driving around and see like one of those Molly made cars or one of those cleaning services and just call them. There's a lot of ways to go about it. I think once you have a standard for what you want, right? And you can walk them through, hey, this is exactly how I want the turnover to go. They can price you. You price it, pass on that cost to the guest. And once you do that, you should be okay. Now, for the sake of kind of just making this a little more streamlined for me, because I have some questions to answer. I still have this guy messaging me from Airbnb. Nashville, yes, Ali, is good because it's a travel city. People go there for the music. It's highly populated. It's a cool city. Memphis as well. I mean, think about it this way: if there's a sports club in that city, then it's a large enough city to support like a professional team, NFL, Major League Baseball, basketball. If major sports are willing to invest in stadium infrastructure, whatever, then you already know there's enough activity, enough support, enough nightlife. All of that is there, and it's going to be interesting for people to visit. That's what I would do. I'd follow the sports clubs, follow major international airports or cities with major international airports. That would be kind of like a telltale sign that there's going to be demand there. But I'm going to switch over exclusively to Why? Okay, Dave Kittle asked, why do rentals if you're building a big home health company? The unfortunate reality, Dave, is that I am an ENTP personality type, so I get bored with things that are monotonous to me, and home healthcare is one of those. So like I get excited by trying things out and saying, "Oh, wow, this is working." So and then I start playing this game like, okay, well, this Airbnb pays for 10 hours of flight time, and this Airbnb covers my car, and this covers, childcare. And I start playing this weird game where that's satisfying to me. And then when there's enough throughput there, I end up saying, damn, this is actually annoying me, and then look to put in managers in place and get some help so that they can start to manage my Airbnbs instead of me. So, when it's a problem like this, I'm getting involved just to kind of calm this person down. But the day-to-day gets managed by my co-host and my operations manager. So, I have those questions with myself sometimes. It's like, this thing that I'm giving effort to is producing me X amount of dollars for my time. And this, if I just pointed this same effort towards, maybe even just like I'm supposed to be doing further due diligence on my deal, putting together, some paperwork for a loan application, and I'm doing an Instagram live and a YouTube live. What is this paying me? It doesn't make any sense, but it's what I want to do. So like when you're talking to somebody that's maybe an NP personality type, they tend to be kind of random in that way, where the new and the possibilities are far more intriguing than the tried and tested, if that sort of makes sense. So that's why, it's like, why give this amount of effort to this new business or this new thing that only makes you X amount of dollars when you have something else that makes you far more money? So just an ENTP problem. But I'm glad that you asked that, because that's the honest answer. Just the dude I am, man. Not everything is for money for me. Like, I like to make money on what I do, but sometimes I like the end result. I like having the experience of being able to answer somebody's question and saying, hey, I did this myself, so I know what the operations are. And if you don't have any entrepreneurial background, right, and you're looking to get started in something that's going to make you money, that's going to spin off 120% a year for you, and if you did 10 of those, you'd make $10,000 a month, and that's enough for you to quit your job and go in a new direction and live your life the way you want. First, I need to test it for myself to know that it's real. Then I'm going to be able to package it in a way that if somebody wanted to make that their only business and run with it, I would at least be able to give them advice on how to go about it. And that gives me kind of like a high in life. You could sit here and ask me maybe about 20 or so different industry groups, and I'm going to have intermediate to master level knowledge on how to approach that business, what to do, because I've done it myself. I've made money, and I said, F it. This is boring to me, and I move on. That's just who I am, man. So short answer or long answer to a simple question. And I'm going to kick it over to YouTube full time. So if you want to continue with this conversation, make your way on over to YouTube. So let me just set this up. Live chat. Airbnb. I'm sorry to do this, but it's got to be done. And let's see what's happening with this guest. I believe I had a hair dryer in this apartment. So he's looking for a blow dryer. And I think I have one in there, but I just told him to go buy one. I'll reimburse him for it. That's kind of a decision that I'm going to have to make. Maybe I could have, that's one thing I could work on, is a protocol that, hey, if there are these sort of complaints and you need to pacify your guests and resolve their problem, here are the parameters that I authorize, right? And then they could say, hey, given that you provide a receipt that you purchased this product that you needed, that was, left, or maybe another guest stole my blow dryer, we could do that. But like I said, this property is one that's not managed the best because the cleaner is a friend, and she, shouldn't necessarily hire friends. So I think for me, I could say, hey, I need the checklist. This is the item list for this property. At the end of every turnover, I want you to send me video of the turnover, which she does like 70% of the time. And I need you to let me know, what are the permanent items and what are the replacement items? What are the levels? Are they there? Are they not? So that we know who stole what, or who lost what, or, what needs to be replaced. So those are the sort of things that you can do to kind of deal with those sort of management challenges. Where the hell am I? Okay, Running Ride X. Carl is a real risk taker. Sometimes too many risk. Are traveling nurses more profitable than Airbnb? Absolutely. But that's as far as like, again, it depends on how you look at it, right? If you're looking at volume of revenue, volume of profit margin, scalability, I would say that is more. But are you going to see 120% return on investment like you would potentially in an Airbnb operation? No. So, what is your criteria for saying what is profitable, more profitable or not? Is it your annual take home, or is it your return on investment for the capital expenditure? Do you see any viable competitors to Airbnb in the near future going down this route and making a big investment? I feel I might be locked into Airbnb and their rules policy change without alternatives. Well, there's a few different services. You got HomeAway. You have FlipKey is another service. There's plenty of Airbnb competitors, but Airbnb kind of has the lead position in this market. It's kind of like Uber, Lyft, and then all the others, right? After Uber and Lyft, what are the other services? There's Didi in South America or in Colombia that I know of, and I don't know of any other services. But even when you're the leader in a space, and the action, when your company's name becomes a verb, right? All right, I'm going to just send an Uber, and that person sends a Didi or sends a Lyft. It's the action of calling one of these taxis via app. When Ubering when your thing becomes that word, or I'm going to do an Airbnb, and it's just it's like a home rental versus I'm going to do a FlipKey, or I'm booking an Airbnb, I'm starting an Airbnb business or whatever. You might be listing on those other platforms, but if you say, hey, I got a FlipKey apartment, a lot of people are going to be like, what? Versus I got an Airbnb, and it's going to make sense. So when there are leaders in the space like that, there's always going to be secondary players. Like there's certain players that are more popular in Europe or locally that they use FlipKey for whatever reason, because that was kind of popular in their city or whatever before Airbnb, and they have like the market penetration. But I think Airbnb is going to try to always keep it competitive for the guests because they're totally dependent on it. So it's a symbiotic relationship. The guests are dependent on them for marketing and traffic and structure, and Airbnb is dependent on the guests for having space available. But I guess if you're looking to offset risk, Jason, that's kind of one way of thinking about it. Just Google their competitors and be on all their platforms. Please keep this on a Wednesday. Can't attend. I think it's usually Wednesdays that I'm here. God Fecka 2009. Hi, Carl. Sorry, this diversion. Please share thoughts on difficulty or ease of starting a home care agency in New Jersey. I don't know anything about starting a home care agency in New Jersey. I've never had one there. That's a better question for consultants that work in the space. I really don't know. So like, I don't know what the payer structure is like in New Jersey. I don't know who the authoritative body is for home care agencies. I don't know if it's skilled versus non-skilled models. I'm actually not the guy for home health care in New Jersey. So I'm sorry I can't quite answer that question. You're welcome. DJ, okay, that's a different. Yvette, what's going on, man? How are you? What are some costs associated with Airbnb investments most people aren't aware of? Most people aren't aware of. I don't know what most people aren't aware of, but some of the obvious are kind of like the turnover of toiletries. Like I had some chicks hair dye kill my sheets at another stage. So it's like the frequency that you need to replenish your sheets. You'll probably create some sort of metrics for that, like every whatever amount of days where I need to have a stock of X amount of sheets, and that will constantly adjust. Let me see what else. Cost. Obviously, your toiletry cost, your utility cost may vary depending on what region you're in because of air conditioning and that kind of getting abused, or heating getting abused. So that can drive your costs surprisingly, right? Because you might manage your air conditioner in a way that, maybe you turn it off when you leave the home. Overutilization of certain utilities might be an issue. The cleaning costs are kind of direct. What else? Oh, something that happens on Airbnb is that sometimes their recommended pricing sucks, and you'll end up booking here's something. This is not a cost, but a penalty of being green to Airbnb. So Airbnb will tell you things like, give a 15% discount on a weekly booking and give like a 40% discount on a monthly. So let's just say it's New York and I'm renting my studio for $130 a day, right? If I'm booked all 30 days, I generate $3,900, right? So if my rent is $2,300 and I generated $3,900, Airbnb takes their cuts, and plus I charge a little more for my cleaning fee, so I'll probably end up with like $4,500 that gets distributed to me. So after paying my rent, my utilities, my cleaning fee, I might be at like $2,800, $2,900, right? And then if I generated $4,500 for that period because I was booked out every day, then I made $1,600, right? If you follow the recommendation of taking the 40% haircut for a monthly booking, then you're going to end up getting $2,250 or $2,300 and just covering your rent, and you're still going to be paying utilities, etc. So if you just take their recommendations on that, you're going to get kicked in the balls when you have that monthly booking. So I don't give that much of a discount for monthly bookings. I might give a 10% or 15%, and that's it, especially when I know that I'm going to be booked up in that city anyway. So like, there's no advantage. And people message me like, why don't you give a steeper discount? Like, because I'm going to make my money anyway, right? I'm not the one physically turning over the apartments. I'm not the one doing these things. So, why would I do something like that, right? That's just my thinking of it. But that's somewhere where the people will get caught. I like, Bim, Paul. Paul started an Airbnb, and he had one of those ridiculous things, and one of his first bookings was that. So it's not profitable for that month automatically, just because they gave too steep of a discount. Thanks, Greg. India aware. How do you edge out competitors in the same space, same city, same space? Your photos, your amenities, your ratings, potentially your pricing. These rules apply in all markets, right? There's going to be competitors in every space. So how do you differentiate the uniqueness of your stay? There was one time I was going to stay in Ilha Grande, Brazil, and there was a container treehouse, and I was like, "That's pretty damn cool." And I went to book it. So sometimes the novelty of the space is the differentiator. Sometimes it's the amenities of the home, a pool, a jacuzzi, a nice outdoor barbecue area, views of a park, views of the skyline. These are all things that you can use to entice someone to choose your listing versus someone else's. Are your photos clear, bright, clean, staged properly versus someone who just took photos off their cell phone and it looks dark and like not as lively? Those are all things that are going to make a difference between your listing and someone else's, aside from price. Some people are just looking honestly, when I book, I put in my parameters. I put in where I want to be, how many bedrooms, how many guests, and what is the budget that I feel that I'm going to pay for this. And I just shrink it down to that, and then I pick from those listings, and that's it. If it's someplace that needs to have air conditioning, make sure air conditioning is turned on, make sure I'm filtering to these things, and that I just pick from that. And I look at the pictures, and I say, well, I like the way this place looks. I like this kitchen. This kitchen works for me. I cook a lot. Or this kitchen is too bogus. It's got a 2-burner thing. Even though it's a studio, I can't work with a 2-burner hot plate. No, another apartment. So those are the things that are going to be the differentiators in a competitive market, is just, meeting what guests are going to want from the space. Oftentimes it's price, number of bedrooms, and overall look and feel. The co-host marketplace is a great resource to find property managers for Airbnb. See, that's something I didn't even know of. The co-host marketplace. Where is that? Like, where obviously I could Google it, but I'm just curious, where is the co-host marketplace? Is that actually in Airbnb? Or is it like another sort of situation? Craig asks, hey, Carl, do you advertise on other platforms like VRBO? I have VRBO messaging me like every month to activate my listings. And since I'm busy with other things, I right now entirely book on Airbnb. I have some openings this month in September down here in Florida. Like I said, it's a slow month. Maybe if I was on VRBO, some of those vacancies might be filled. So I don't just yet, but definitely open to it. And the thing is, when you book on multiple platforms, you can actually link those calendars so that they communicate to each other, so that you don't run into like a double booking scenario. And like I said, something like VRBO might be more popular in a European market than in the US. So people who are shopping from Europe, looking to travel to the US, if they were allowed to travel here, would be booking on Vrbo. And then, you may get other eyes. They say that a lot of their users tend to like longer stays. And that's kind of how they pitch themselves and present themselves as like, hey, our clients prefer longer stays. But I haven't used them yet to say for certain that that's the better route. You're welcome, Jason. India aware. Can you talk about tax deductions for the Airbnb? Like a Beechcraft buyer in G58, how can you write it off? Okay. So your Airbnb, with all real estate, right, you're gonna have a few write-offs that are unique to you, right? Especially if you're using real estate for a business purpose. So you're gonna be able to write off or depreciate your furniture that you get for your Airbnb. If you don't just expense it out out front, right? That's up to you to decide whether you're gonna you're going to expense out, a $200 desk right away or depreciate out over 5 years. I'll just expense it out as whatever right away. And then you're going to be able to deduct your rent as a legitimate expense. Hold on a second. I got to this call. Hello? Hey. Hello? Hello? Sorry about this. Excuse me? Yeah. Yeah, I'm here. Hello?
Is it possible for him to come down?
Well, how close by are you?
15 minutes.
Okay. I'll shoot the message that you should be there in 15, and then he can. Okay. I guess just call me once you're there. Okay. Yep. All right. Sorry about this. This is the realities of Airbnb. One bad turnover creates a freaking nightmare for you and lost revenue. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So those are the sort of deductions that you would be able to claim as like normal deductions. But when you're looking at like owning the real estate, then you'd have other benefits there because now you'd benefit from depreciating out the real estate that you own over 27 and a half years, et cetera, et cetera. So there isn't like accelerated depreciation for real estate that I know of. So, you don't have like the same sort of scenario as if you were going to get like a heavy duty truck or an aircraft where you have this accelerated depreciation in the first year of acquiring. They haven't gotten that reckless with real estate just yet. Oh no, I'm not even done with my renovations in Sicily yet. It's super slow. I actually have a manager on site now helping to kind of get that ready. I'm hoping to have it ready by November, but they got shut down a few times due to COVID, and then supply chain got interrupted, so things have been slow. Just want to say I appreciate you. Stay safe, Professor Cutie Pie. You missed quite a bit, but we're almost set to we're almost set to close out here. I just wanted to address this thing and get out of here. But thank you all for taking the time out to watch this video. Like, these lives are meant to kind of be this way, conversational, where we're answering questions and maybe giving some guidance to people who are curious about that particular topic. Obviously, I like to talk, so it gives me an opportunity to talk and share whatever experiences I have. It also gives me an opportunity to learn. As Craig was saying, the co-host marketplace might be a good resource for me. So that's kind of the situation there. So if you do want one-to-one consultations, I think they're actually pretty good, especially that way you get to ask all your questions, etc. I do have the option to book 1 hour sessions with me. I do about 2 to 4 hours of sessions a week. That way I don't kind of overcrowd myself more than I do already. So if you are interested in talking through a little bit more about your Airbnb strategy, or maybe your real estate investing strategy, or your home care strategy, stock trading, the knowledge base is pretty wide. So if you do have some questions that you feel that you want to ask in privacy, or we're going to be discussing financial matters, you can always book a session out with me. Just as a closing statement, if you are interested in investing in 1 to 4 family real estate, you can always check out Killing the American Dream, going to www.entplife.com, and you'll see that course being offered. And for those of you who have an interest in healthcare and healthcare staffing, I have another course there called Passive Workforce, where we teach you how to build out your own staffing firm. And that's pretty much it. They're both relatively inexpensive compared to the value that I think is being offered there. So if you want to check those out, always feel free, register, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Deal with this problem.